Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber. You're watching Better for America, presented by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. Now, since President Trump left office, we've seen death and destruction unfold throughout the world. We saw 13 brave American service members killed in Afghanistan. That happened in August of 2021, followed by Russia invading Ukraine in February of 2022. And now, most recently, we have all been horrified by what is occurring in the Middle East. American leadership plays such a pivotal role in vital world affairs. And joining me today to discuss what's happening across the globe is Dr. Sebastian Gorka, who has had a front row seat to peace through strength leadership when he served in the Trump administration. Dr. Gorka, thank you so much for being here with me.
Well, thank you for having me, Rebecca. I always enjoy these discussions, and it was even better to see you in person. We broke bread together at the Encounter Books gala last month here in the swamp. So great to see you there and great to be with all of the AMAC listeners today.
Dr. Gorka, since this conflict in Israel began, you have written extensively about your views on this horrific war, and people can find a lot of your articles on amac.us. In a recent article, We Are All Jews, you state that our civilization is the JudeoChristian Civilization, and you go on to write something that really caught me. You say, when the Bible speaks of man made in the image of God, Imago Dei, that isn't poetic flourish, that is the actual foundation of our entire civilization. Can you tell our listeners, what are your thoughts on Israel's influence on American culture and what our Judeo-Christian civilization really stands for?
Well, just look at the founding fathers and what they wrote about America as the new Zion. They were very clear that the pillars of our civilization come from Israel, come from the Jewish people. Yes, our civilization is rooted in Greco-Roman antecedents, especially the philosophers of ancient Greece, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, that talked about man's reason to understand the world around him. And then, of course, the Romans, after the Greeks, with their legal system, the predictability of the legal framework. There's a reason that they had a Senate, and here in Washington, D.C., we have the Senate as well. But their gods were capricious. Their gods, you didn't have a relationship with the polytheistic gods of either Olympus or either the Roman pantheon. What's unique about Judaism is its monotheism. And from the Old Testament on, whether it's Noah, whether it's Adam, whether it's Abraham, the individual, the human, has a relationship with his creator. And there is, of course, the new relationship, the covenant of the New Testament, and how his son brought us back to the Father, but also did so for all Gentiles. And with regards to America, let's be clear, our founding document states that we have right. This is the only nation in the world that enshrines in its founding document the concept that we have rights, not because of some dynasty, some royal family, or because some political elite or government deigns to give us rights. We have rights because we are made in the image of our creator, Imago Dei. That's why the word creator is written with a capital C in America's founding document. You know, that's the source of our rights. And we have to understand that what's happening in the Middle East isn't something that's just 8,000 miles away and is irrelevant to us. There is this tie that binds our two nations together. And as the jihadists say, and we are a month since the slaughter of the innocents, as the jihadists say themselves, first we come for the Saturday people, we kill the Jews, and then we come for the Sunday people, and we kill the Christians. So whether it's 9/11 or whether it's October 7th, there is one thing that binds us. We are part of one civilization, and this civilization has enemies like Hamas, like China, like Iran, and we need to wake up as Americans to that reality.
Now, the radical left has been working hard, it seems, to really erase God from America, from our institutions, from our schools, from our universities, and any mention of it. It seems, too, that the radical left, in my view, has taken over our universities. and we've really turned them into indoctrination camps, Dr. Gorka. When did it become acceptable to support terrorists who rape young girls, rape women, kill babies, murder innocent civilians? I mean, I can't, you look and you say, how are these young people defending this type of action?
Yeah. So first things first, we have to appreciate this didn't happen overnight. This isn't a function of Biden or Obama. It goes far, far deeper. If you really want to understand the root of it all, there's a life-changing book I recommend to all of your listeners and viewers. It's the late, great Andrew Breitbart's Righteous Indignation. And he was a self-confessed, brainless drunk at Tulane University who woke up one day, saw what they were doing to Clarence Thomas during the Supreme Court hearings, what Thomas himself called a high-tech lynching of an uppity black man, a hearing, by the way, which was chaired by none other than Senator Biden. And then Breitbart wakes up and says, what is this? Why are Democrats going after a black man because he's a conservative? And in chapter 6 of Righteous Indignation, he does this tour de force of how the left became what the left is today. I used it as the inspiration for a deeper exegesis in my last book, The War on America's Soul. And if you want to understand why we are where we are, just read chapter 3 of The War for America's Soul. And it actually goes back 100 years, Rebecca. There is a crippled Italian communist in one of Mussolini's prisons in the 1920s called Antonio Gramsci. And he has this brainwave. He asks the question, why is communism failing everywhere except Russia? We're trying it in Italy. We're trying it in England. We're trying it in Germany. We're trying it in America, right? We had communists in America. Why is it failing? And Gramsci has this brainwave. He says, in a nation that has a Judeo-Christian heritage and a strong, vibrant middle class, you're never going to have a quote unquote workers' revolution because the middle class will say, excuse me, I'm very happy, thank you very much. Why do you want me to man the barricades? That's insanity. So he realizes that unless it's a feudal nation like Tsarist Russia, or later communist China, that was a peasant nation in 1948, you don't have the capacity to break the will of the middle class, a strong, healthy, vibrant Judeo-Christian middle class. So what did he say? He said, well, don't go for a revolution. Don't try and man the barricades. You take over the institutions from the inside. And that was eventually developed into what Rudi Dutschke, the Frankfurt School, called the long march through the institutions. And they did it. They worked assiduously for the following 80 years to take over media, Hollywood, the high schools, the colleges, the teacher training colleges, massively important, until we woke up one morning and we have young girls ripping down the posters of kidnapped Israeli babies on university campuses. We wake up one morning and we have chants outside the White House of from the river to the sea. What does this phrase, from the river to the sea, mean? It means from the Mediterranean to the Jordanian Sea, which means what? Israel must be wiped out, right? Palestine will be free from the river to the sea means the extermination fully of the Jewish people in Israel. So the sad fact is, people ask me, how did we get here? And I say, you want to know who's responsible? Look in the mirror. We are responsible because conservatives lived our lives, make sure we could pay the car payment at the end of the month, that Timmy had a new pair of shoes for the new school year. And we allowed the culture to be taken over by the extremists, by the radicals. And today, the end result, this is the most perverse thing, Rebecca. We now live in a civilization, in a society where the political elite who run the nation actually hate the nation.
Mm-hmm.
That's never happened before. And remember, this isn't just Dr. G, this isn't just Sebastian talking. We had a former president called Barack Obama who campaigned on what? He promised, I will fundamentally change America. Well, you don't fundamentally change anything that you love. Therefore, we know what's going on. These people hate America. That's why they're giving $6 billion to Iran. That's why Joe Biden lands back at Ramstein Air Base from this utterly failed diplomatic tour to the Middle East, where every Arab head of state refuses to meet with him. And what does this man say? I mean, please, if you've not heard this before, go and watch the video. He walks to the back of Air Force One. He's amongst the journalists, and he says, "I don't know about that rocket falling on that hospital. Looks like maybe it was the other side." And quote, "Hamas needs to learn how to shoot straight." Excuse me? Hamas needs to learn what? To kill more Jews? This is the perverse age we live in, Rebecca.
Yeah. Well, they're going after our children, and I think you made that abundantly clear from the inside out in our institutions, our universities. We see it all happening. It's one reason why Dan Weber formed AMAC in 2007. He saw the writing on the wall. He understood that this country culturally was shifting. And here at AMAC, we have our eyes on this, and we're so grateful for your perspective there. Now, tensions are certainly escalating across the entire globe right now, and while America has been involved by proxy, so many Americans and our AMAC members are really rightly concerned about America's potential direct involvement. So long term, how do you see this evolving? Do you expect the United States to become more directly involved in what's happening with Israel, Hamas, and the Middle
Well,
East
look,
as a whole?
I can't give you any good news because my thing is national security. I've been doing this since 1988. And I see a dangerous concatenation, a devil's brew right now in American national security. We have ideologues who hate America, who hate Israel, who give succor and aid to our enemies, who are at the same time rank incompetence. I mean, I look at the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley, who's talking about teaching critical race theory at West Point. I look at the Secretary of Defense, who says on the floor of the Congress, "I have no regrets for how we left Afghanistan, despite the fact that 13 servicemen and women were murdered by ISIS. He has no regrets." And then I look at the person who outranks them all, this pathetic shadow of a man, Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, who 3 weeks before the October 7th massacre says the Middle East has never been so stable. A man who wrote a 9,000-word article for Foreign Affairs on how amazing Biden's foreign policy is and how we're fixing the world. And then October the 7th happens. And what does this man do? I mean, he has no shame. He can't change the print version, so he goes back into the electronic version of his article and he deletes whole passages about how great everything is because it's like 1984 and the truth has to be memory hold. He has to change history. So we will have no requisite answer to what's happening in the Middle East because we have no leadership and we're led by people who hate this country. What we need is my former boss. God willing, if we do our part, we need 45 back in the White House as 47, because I'm working on a magnum opus right now on how is it that he kept us safe. Let's just take politics out of the equation for a moment. For 4 years, Rebecca, we were safe. We had a border. There were no new wars. We were pulling our troops out of positions overseas. We were getting NATO to pay their fair share. We were killing the most dangerous terrorist in the world, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. We were killing Soleimani, who was about to attack hundreds of our servicemen in the Middle East. And no new wars. And in the space of just 2 years, we have what? We have a surrender in Afghanistan. We have war in Ukraine. And now we have the Middle East on fire again. So the beautiful thing about President Trump is neither was he a neo-Buchananite, kind of Tuckerite isolationist, because he knows that's absurd. You can't be an isolationist in a globalized world. But neither was he an interventionist. He wasn't interested in invading other people's countries and quote unquote trying to turn them into democracies at the end of a gun barrel. That's what we need. In the meantime, I cannot predict for you what America will do, because I don't do ideology and I don't do incompetence. And that's what these people are driven by.
Mm. And so many people rightfully are blaming the weakness of the Biden administration for all of these international tensions. And, I'm thinking, what is it about this administration that emboldens so many people around the world to really strike America down or seek to hurt American leadership? And you said it, Dr. Gorka, you said it. You said that those bad actors understand that we have an administration that does not love America the way you would expect a president to love this country and defend this country. We see wide open borders. We see so much happening right under his nose, people dying of fentanyl. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Cities like San Francisco, we can't go visit San Francisco anymore. I mean, this is a president who really is turning a blind eye to the issues here at home in America, pretends that they don't exist, and then thinks everybody's going to go along with it. Now, if Donald Trump, for example, were to prevail next year, he will be facing an even greater task, I think, regarding foreign affairs than he did in 2017. The main concern was tensions with North Korea. And I just want to ask you, as somebody who worked for that administration, how might you expect Trump or any competent incoming administration to handle all of these conflicts that are really underway? How will the next administration help foster peace?
There's really no magical, mystical answer here. We'll do exactly what we did when we were in the White House. So when I was deputy to the president, I borrowed a motto, a catchphrase from the Marine Corps. I spent 2.5 years in Quantico teaching the Marines, and I used their description of themselves to describe America under the Trump presidency. No better friend, no worse enemy. It's really, I don't want to oversimplify things, but the policy part of it is really nominal. Even the national security strategy that we would write and the specific diplomatic measures are kind of less important than the character of the man in the White House. And that's really what changes. Let me illustrate with one example. It's so amusing now, after the quote-unquote coup in Moscow, how everybody's suddenly an expert on the Wagner Group. Well, let me assure your viewers and listeners, we in the Trump administration were experts on the Wagner Group 6 years ago. Why? And this is declassified now, so I can talk about it. We briefed the president on the fact that 300 Russian mercenaries were running around the Middle East, destabilizing that region. And they weren't really mercenaries. Everybody knows the Wagner Group was simply the deniable assets of the Kremlin. They were doing Putin's bidding from Africa to Asia and across the world for the profit of Moscow. When we briefed the president, there are hundreds of them running around the Middle East, destabilizing the region. He didn't invade that country. He didn't talk of regime change. He instantly ordered the Secretary of Defense to kill them all. And within 24 hours, 300 Russian fighters were turned into a red mist. What was the response from the Kremlin? It was fascinating. Nothing. Vladimir Putin didn't even hold a press conference to complain. Why? Because he was rightly afraid of President Trump. This is what we do. Likewise, when we briefed the president that Bashar al-Assad, the murderous dictator in Syria, is preparing to use chemical weapons one more time against civilian targets, we told him, and he said, really? And he said, launch an overwhelming force of cruise missiles, more than 50 missiles, against that facility and turn it into a sheet of glass, which we did. And he was doing so at the same time that Xi Jinping, the communist dictator of China, was having state dinner at Mar-a-Lago. And it's pure President Trump. Once the chemical weapons facility was destroyed, he went to Xi Jinping, leant over him as he was eating his chocolate cake, and through the interpreter, he informed the dictator of what he had done, just to send a message to Xi, to Putin, to Kim in North Korea, to the mullahs in Iran, that, there are some red lines for this administration. And unlike the Obama administration, When you cross them, we will come down on you like the hammers of hell. That's all you need. You need a serious, to answer your question briefly, Rebecca, uh, all you need is a serious individual in the White House who loves America, and that's President Trump.
It's really very simple. Someone with a steady mind. We know that Joe Biden does not have his mind about him, and someone with a strong backbone. We certainly saw that in President Donald J. Trump. Boy, the election is really less than 1 year away, and you've said this before, Dr. Gorka, that this will truly be the most important one in our lifetime. What advice can you leave with our membership? How can they play their part in saving our great republic?
Thank you. This is the most important question. This is what I deal with every day on my daily radio show, America First. I want people to be shaken out of their torpor. If you think that voting every 2 years and sending a check to your favorite candidate is enough, you might as well not bother to vote, or you might as well be working for the Democrats. The age of, spending 30 minutes voting and making a donation online are over. If you're listening to this podcast, if you're a member of AMAC and you're not actively politically engaged, you are helping them to steal the republic. I look at my wife's example, who is, absolutely detests politics because she's rational and she's sane. She ran for public. She ran for public office. She failed the first time. She won the second time. She spent the last 6 weeks mobilizing voters in our county, knocking on hundreds of doors. And beyond all of that, she spent all day yesterday leaving the house at 4:30 in the morning, coming home at 10 p.m. as the chief election officer for our district. If my wife, who hates politics, can do that, then none of us have an excuse. So here's my clarion call to all people who are watching, are members of AMAC. Run, run, run. Run for local office. Local office is far more important than anything else. It's cool to be a senator. It's cool to work in the White House. Don't get me wrong. But America's lifeblood is local. De Tocqueville knew this. He understood it. So I don't care if it's the local school board. In fact, that's probably the most important thing you can do. Local school board, community center, county commissioner. Run, run, run. And also, you can help candidates by sitting at home on your phone. You can be part of a phone bank that mobilizes people to get out and vote. So whether it's knocking on doors, being part of a phone bank, running for local office, it's up to us. It really, they took our country from us one county at a time. It's time to take it back one county at a time. Read Andrew's book, read my book, and just get engaged.
Get engaged. Dr. Gorka, thank you so much. Let everyone listening and watching know how they can hear more from you each day on your show. Go ahead.
Well, first things first, I'm so grateful to you and your team that works like greased lightning. When I send you an article, it is up within the hour. So all of my pieces are at amac.us/Gorka. And then my daily radio show is on Salem across the country. You can listen to it via podcast on Rumble. You can go to sebgorka.com. It cycles 24/7 there. That's SEBGORKA, sebgorka.com. The latest book is The War for America's Soul. I strongly recommend Andrew Breitbart's book, Righteous Indignation. And then I have a weekly show on Newsmax, The Gorka Reality Check, every 7 and 10 p.m. every Sunday night.
Excellent. Dr. Gorka, thanks again for being here. It's always a great pleasure to have you.
Thank you. God bless you and the AMAC members.
Have you ever wished someone could plan your dream vacation? Collect Guided Travel comes with benefits that will take your guided travel experience to another level. You'll experience must-sees and connect with the people and the culture that define a destination. You'll eat in locals' homes, take cooking classes, travel by trains, and even stay in igloos, castles, or chateaus. With over 175 tours to all 7 continents and 5 distinct travel styles, Colette has the tour for you. Plus, AMAC members save an extra $50 to $100 off every tour. Go ahead and visit Colette.com/AMAC to learn more.